Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Just an Opinion. What do you get when you combine a sitcom featuring Steve Rhodes from Married with Children and Jason Bateman? Well, up until a couple weeks ago, I didn't really know either. It was brand new to me. But now that I'm caught up, I can discuss the short-lived sitcom It's Your Move. The show was on the air from September of 1984 until February of 1985, airing 18 episodes on NBC.
You still don't have a full-time job, the writing's going nowhere. Let's face it, you don't even have a tan. It's not working for you, babe.
Despite its short run, it was a launching pad for both Bateman and David Garrison, but also the show's creators, Michael G. Moye and Ron Leavitt, who would go on to make one of sitcom's most iconic shows. The show featured single mom Eileen with her two kids, Matthew and Julie.
Like the guys who take you to the drive-in, I can make the most of an ugly situation.
There was the neighbor Norman, who was the love interest for Eileen and a thorn in Matthew's side. The focus of the show was mainly on Matthew and Norman. Matthew was a resident con artist established immediately.
Well, tomorrow's a big day, our 4th annual term paper sale. And we've all invested a lot of time and energy, and I know we've all given up a lot.
He didn't take too kindly to Norman, an unemployed writer dating his mother. But Matthew learned that Norman wasn't the average chump, as the two became dueling schemers constantly thwarting each other's plans.
Okay, look, I'm going to stay in this building, I'm going to keep taking your mother out, and there's nothing you can do to stop me. Look, don't you see that every scam you try, I just turn it around on you? I mean, you're good. But let's face it, I'm better.
While the show had almost a full season run, it faced some heavy competition with neighboring networks. Plus, the show was somewhat criticized for Matthew's character being a con artist prodigy and a bad example for children.
Aren't you the kid who had my mail forwarded to Iceland? Wasn't it you who reported me as an illegal alien? Weren't you the one who put an ad in the paper with my address saying kittens wanted? And you're going to give me a lecture on how to behave?
Who better?
I guess audiences were more accepting of a role like this a few years later with characters like Zach Morris.
Have a great vacation. A wonderful time. A really, really wonderful time. Oh, hello, Golden West Bank. My name is Norman Lamb. I'd like to report a stolen credit card.
So let's get into characters. At the forefront, we get a young Jason Bateman playing Matthew.
Hi.
Bateman was fresh off his recurring role as Derek on Silver Spoons, which was definitely an inspiration for this role.
You got any grease or something? Slipperier the better. What for? I want to put some on the bottom of my dad's bowling shoes.
Matthew is a young genius coming up with some money-making schemes.
I don't mean to burden you, but you see, our school is having an annual vocational guidance week. And, well, frankly, my friend here could use some guidance, right, Vernon?
You bet, Zachary.
But he appears to have met his match with Norman.
Isn't this great? I mean, here we are. We live right across the hall from each other, and now we share the same schoolroom. Good thing we get along, eh, buddy?
I hate you, Norman.
While Matthew feels Norman isn't good enough for his mother, you also see some heart in him and that he wants to protect and care for her as well.
I think I better get my glasses fixed before I start buying new shoes. The frame's loose again.
Mom, why don't you let me take a look at them? Maybe I can fix them.
Oh, okay, here. Here you go.
Hey, Mom, there's 40 bucks in here. Really? Yeah, look at that.
Wow! I wonder how long it's been in here.
David Garrison was new-ish to television with his role Norman. The role was somewhat similar to his forthcoming part as Steve Rhodes.
I'm glad you're here. I need a bra, Steve.
Some makeup wouldn't hurt either.
Norman was a decent man trying to woo Eileen any way he could that wouldn't cost too much money.
Oh, Matthew, guess where we went tonight? A drive-in.
A drive-in, eh, Darn? Did you pay the $1.50 or just park in a hill?
No more monster movies for a while. Next week, you are going to have the time of your life.
Matthew, Norman's taking me to Sealand.
Whoa.
Norman was mostly a humble man, but seemed to perk up at any time he could antagonize Matthew.
I can't stop you from always looking for the easy way, but I am through being the one who has to save your neck when your schemes backfire. You think you can charm your way out of anything. Well, Matthew, life doesn't work like that, and it is about time you learned that lesson.
He was also multi-talented, who seemed to fit any job that could guarantee him a paycheck.
Driver, door please.
Next up, we get Eileen, played by Karen Kane.
I want you to look after Matthew. I've seen those movies of the week, and I know what can happen to a young child. I don't want him going to any wild parties, having any accidents, getting kidnapped, eating any bad things, or dying in his sleep. Have fun, sweetheart.
She was a good mom, but sometimes too giving since others took advantage of her.
You know, Mom, I really think you ought to take a stand with your boss today.
Oh, it's not really that bad. Except for the way he leaves his stinking cigars burning all over the place, and how he never says thank you, and how he always brings his Afghan hound into the office and says, "No, no, let him. He's only being friendly."
She and Norman were a good fit if he could just get over his insecurities.
How about you and me hopping over to Dorano's for a late dinner, huh?
Well, that's kind of expensive. Can you afford it?
Yeah, I've been saving up, and besides, if you don't splurge on the finer things, what's the point in living?
Rounding out the kids was Julie, played by Trisha Cast. She was constantly at odds with Matthew.
I just don't know why I had to go all the way to East LA to get Senora Sanchez's tasty tortillas.
Because they fly the best!
And often avoiding Eli unless she needed a favor.
Why don't you go to the Harvest Ball with me? Remember 2 years ago, when you were 14? I asked you out, you said you only date boys your own age? Well, I'm 14 now.
Yeah, but Eli, I'm 16 now.
I'm closing in on you, babe.
Sadly, I think the show underutilized Julie.
Mom, I can't find my panties.
But Cass went on to have a very long career in soap operas, so she's doing just fine. For supporting cast, we have Eli. He was Matthew's shy but good-natured best friend played by Adam Sadowski. He was often Matthew's unwilling accomplice.
What are we smiling at?
Do they still have those skeletons in the biolab?
Sure. What are we smiling at?
Eli wasn't the smoothest operator, so he would sometimes ask for advice from Norman.
Eli, you've come to the right guy.
I know, because you and me were both born without the benefit of good looks. But you're going with Mrs. Burton, and she's real good looking. So I figure you must know something.
But sometimes Matthew just tried to take matters into his own hands to help out his buddy.
You go out with Eli and this doesn't find its way to the police.
And finally, we get Lou, played by Ernie Sabella. Lou was mostly in the background, butting in at the worst times.
Ding dong, the witch is dead. Witch, old witch, you crazy witch. Or to put it non-musically,
You just did.
Often, he was a paid helper of Matthew, but he also had to clean up a few of his messes along the way, too.
What's this?
You said you were going to help me.
Yeah, but sometimes I say good morning, too, and I don't really mean that either.
As previously discussed, the show's constant theme was Norman and Matthew and their dueling cons. The two went back and forth, but sometimes found themselves forming temporary alliances. But sometimes their schemes got to a point where their distrust in the other led to them ruining a good thing.
Look me in the eyes and tell me you did not write this letter.
I didn't write that letter.
That means nothing. I know you wrote it.
Wait a minute. I am not going to let you throw me off the trail. Now, you look me in the eye and tell me you did not write these.
I wrote this one.
I'm supposed to believe you?
There weren't any very special episodes, but we had some fun along the way. One episode featured Matthew in a pinch to come up with a band for the school dance, so he creates the Dregs of Society. But the unthinkable happens, and the band becomes an overnight sensation.
It's me, Donatelli!
And Norman tries to cash in with an interview that will launch his budding writing career. Another episode starts as normal, but it soon unravels into a whodunit theme centering on a conspiracy to get Julie kicked off the cheerleading squad.
We're all here today to unmask a murderer. A murderer of a young girl's hopes and dreams. Now, you all had a motive to keep my sister off the cheerleading squad.
It sounds absurd, but it was actually really funny with how the plot panned out.
It's 10 minutes after 3. I think I'll push your white girl in the closet. That is the dumbest thing I have ever heard.
The episode was one of the only times that the focus was on Julie, but sadly, it was the last episode that aired.
At least you still have your hair, you cow.
You bald little.
All right.
The show featured an abundance of young stars who would go on to bigger careers. We had River Phoenix in the opening episode.
Oh, Brian, did you put the term papers where I told you?
Yep, did it last night. They ran to the loose floorboard of the vacant apartment across the hall.
Hey, you're executive material, Brian.
Jason Bateman's real-life sister, Justine.
Did you know you're invited to my sister's party?
I wasn't. But I was hanging around when they were talking about it, and I wouldn't leave until they asked me to come.
Christy Swanson, Shawneen Smith, and even Garrett Morris had somewhat of a supporting character, appearing in 4 episodes as Matthew's principal, and had some of the funniest dialogue.
How's about after closing time, you and me go to your house and make the neighbors call the police?
Go listen to him. He's got a wife and 5 kids.
Yeah, and if the wife ever found out about the kids, boy, would she be mad.
Well, the show came and then it went. I hadn't actually heard of it until I was doing some Insomniac-driven IMDb researching.
I gotta get out of here. I had to get married or something.
Well, according to these pictures, in some states you are.
It's a fun footnote in the careers of Garrison and Bateman. I don't know of any physical media or streaming release of this show, but you can find it all on YouTube, so check it out. Thank you so much for watching, and please do leave a comment. I'll be back soon, but I'm going to switch gears, and I'm going to rank my top 10 favorite G.I. Joe episodes. I hope you check it out.